Hey, quick update that actually matters. The 49ers quietly made a handful of roster moves that aren't just end-of-season housekeeping. They're the kind of tweaks teams make when the playoffs are looming and every roster spot needs to pull its weight. First up, San Francisco added safety Darrick Forrest to the practice squad, a player who's had starting experience and can contribute on special teams. That's a textbook move after an injury to Javon Brown and shows the front office is thinking about immediate depth in the secondary. They also signed tight end Hayden Rucci, a fringe NFL player who's bounced around but gives the team an extra body and insurance at a position the 49ers like to use in multiple personnel packages. On the flip side, the team released wide receiver Javon, someone they signed earlier but who ultimately didn't stick, and they locked up Colton Dale with a future reserve contract, which tells you they're already keeping an eye on the future even while shoring up. For now, none of these are headline-grabbing blockbuster trades, but they all add up. Forrest provides a veteranish presence who can step in on special teams and spot duty. Rucci protects against an unexpected Tate injury. And releasing Baker was likely a numbers call that reflects confidence in the receiver group the coaching staff prefers for the postseason. This is the sort of front office housekeeping that wins playoff games by removing variables and ensuring trusted players are available when the lights are brightest. Quick poll for you. Do you think these moves will change the 49ers playoff outlook? Vote yes or no in the comments. And while you're there, tell me which move stands out most to you and why. I want to hear which signing or cut you think matters more. If you like these kinds of breakdowns, hit like and subscribe. We're pushing to get to 1,000 subscribers so we can keep bringing fast, focused Niners updates and deeper playoff coverage. It really helps the channel grow when you smash that subscribe button and ring notifications. Alright, now that you know what happened and why it's not just roster noise, next I'll break down Darrick Forrest's background and why he might be more important than most fans expect, especially on special teams and in shallow secondary packages. When you really zoom in on the Darrick Forrest signing, it starts to make a lot more sense why the 49ers targeted him instead of just grabbing a random name off the street. Forrest isn't some guy who's never seen the field. He actually played meaningful snaps with Washington earlier in his career, and that matters a lot when you're talking about a team that's about to enter playoff football where mistakes get magnified. He was forced into action pretty early with the Commanders, and even though he wasn't a star, he held his own, showed he could survive in an NFL game speed, and proved he wasn't going to melt down when thrown into real situations. That's exactly the type of profile you want when you're dealing with an injury in the secondary like the Javon Brown situation, because the worst thing you can do right now is rely on someone who's never been in the fire before. Forrest also brings something the 49ers quietly value a lot: special teams ability. In the playoffs, field position is everything, and having a safety who can run down on kicks, cover punts, and play disciplined football can literally swing a game. You might not notice it on the stat sheet, but those are hidden yards that win tight matchups. So even if Forrest never ends up starting a game, his presence stabilizes multiple phases of the team, and that's huge. Let me ask you this. Do you think Forrest should get actual defensive snaps if needed, or do you see him more as a special teams piece? Drop your answer in the comments because I'm curious where you land on that. And if you remember him from Washington, let me know what you thought of his play back then. This is also a great moment to make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, because as the 49ers push deeper into the postseason, these little moves can turn into big storylines fast, and you don't want to miss how it all unfolds. Up next, we'll get into Hayden Rucci and why the 49ers felt the need to add another tight end right now, even with a pretty solid group already in place. Now let's talk about Hayden Rucci, because on the surface this might look like a nothing move, but it actually fits perfectly with how the 49ers think about roster construction, especially at tight end. Rucci is the type of player who's been around the league, bounced between teams like Miami and others, And while he hasn't locked down a permanent role, he's gained experience in different systems and understands what it takes just to survive in the NFL. For a team like San Francisco that uses tight ends for blocking, pass catching, motion, and protection, having another capable body in the room is incredibly valuable. This isn't about replacing anyone at the top of the depth chart. It's about protecting yourself against chaos. One injury at tight end can force you to change your entire offensive approach, and the 49ers don't want to be in a position where they have to scrap their game plan because they're suddenly short on bodies. Rucci gives them flexibility. He gives the coaches another option in practice, and if needed, he gives them someone who can step into a limited role without completely blowing up the scheme. Let me ask you a quick yes or no question. Do you think the 49ers should carry extra tight ends into the playoffs, or do you feel good about the group they already have? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you like this kind of behind-the-scenes roster talk, make sure you hit that like button. It tells YouTube to push this video out to more 49ers fans and helps the channel grow toward that 1,000 subscriber goal. The release of Javon Baker is one of those moves that can easily fly under the radar, but it actually tells you a lot about how the 49ers feel about their wide receiver room heading into the most important stretch of the season. Baker was brought in earlier as a developmental piece, a guy you stash on the practice squad to see if something clicks. But at some point the team has to decide whether that experiment is worth continuing, and clearly they felt confident enough in their current group to move on. When a team cuts a receiver this late in the year, it usually means one thing: the coaches already know who they trust. They've seen these guys in practice, in meetings, in real game situations, and they've decided they're comfortable rolling with the receivers they have for a playoff push. That's actually a pretty strong signal of stability, because uncertainty at wide receiver can wreck timing and chemistry in an offense. By releasing Baker, the 49ers are essentially saying, "We know who our guys are. Let me know what you think. Do you believe the current wide receiver group is strong enough to make a deep playoff run? Or should the team have held on to Baker a little longer?" Drop your thoughts in the comments, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed, because this is exactly the time of year when roster decisions turn into huge storylines, and you don't want to miss any of it as we march toward that 1,000 subscriber milestone. Up next, we'll wrap everything together and look at what all of these moves say about the 49ers mindset as a playoff team. When you put all of these moves together, a really clear picture starts to form about how the 49ers are approaching this moment in the season. Signing Derek Forrest isn't about making headlines. It's about making sure the secondary and special teams don't become a weak point if something goes wrong. Bringing in Hayden Rucci isn't about chasing upside. It's about protecting the offense from a depth crisis at tight end. Releasing Javon Baker shows confidence in the wide receivers who are already in the building, and locking up Colton Dale on a future deal shows the front office is still thinking long-term even while pushing to win now. That's what well-run playoff teams do. They tighten the roster, eliminate unnecessary risk, and quietly add pieces that can keep everything stable when the pressure at its highest. Let me ask you one last thing before we wrap this up. Do you like the way the 49ers front office is handling the roster right now, or would you like to see them be more aggressive? Let me know in the comments, and if you've enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like the video and subscribe so we can keep pushing toward that 1,000 subscriber goal and bring you even more Niners news as this run continues.